Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a really fascinating concept, household cultivation. Now, if you've ever felt like you literally need to run away to a remote mountain just to find some peace and quiet, well, you're not alone. But what if I told you that you could find true spiritual enlightenment without actually abandoning your career, your family, or your, endless daily responsibilities? We're unpacking a deeply informative text on this very topic, so let's just jump right in. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to cover the philosophy of household cultivation, why it perfectly fits our modern era, and how daily life actually is spiritual practice. Then we'll hit some practical steps, talk about guarding the mind and the six senses, and wrap up with the joy of Dharma. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the philosophy of household cultivation, or the mind as a temple. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that true Dharma practice totally flips the script on what we usually think of as spirituality. You don't have to pack your bags and run away from society. Instead, it's about building this sacred sanctuary right inside your own head. The text actually calls it ordaining the mind within your home. So you're still working your 9 to 5, you're still doing the school run, but internally, your mind is locked into the exact same spiritual discipline as someone living in a secluded temple. You're aiming for ultimate liberation, but you're doing it right in the middle of a bustling, noisy world. It's kind of brilliant, right? And there's this great quote from the ancient text, The Great Learning, which hits the nail on the head. It says, "From the emperor to the commoner, all must cultivate themselves as the foundation." So it literally doesn't matter who you are or what your status is. Building this foundation of self-cultivation is the absolute root of a good life. It means doing the hard work internally, actively swapping out bad habits, trading anger for mercy, and moving away from selfish greed toward unconditional giving. It's the ultimate foundational path for, well, all of us. Now, it's really fascinating to look at the contrast between a traditional historical monk and a modern household cultivator. Think about it. The traditional monk leaves society entirely, right? They seek out total isolation and rely on alms or the charity of others just to survive. But the household cultivator, they work for a living. They don't rely on alms at all. And because they're earning, they can actually give away their wealth, their time, and their physical energy to help people. They're facing the daily grind of the real world head on, and they're using that exact friction to polish their spiritual state. It's like turning everyday stress into a whetstone for the mind. Moving right along to Section 2, Why Cultivate at Home? The Modern Era's Calling. So, looking back through history, past eras really did require that physical isolation. But the text highlights a huge shift around the year 1930. It mentions a heavenly decree that specifically opened up this new path for commoners to cultivate right at home, basically to help people navigate impending worldly disasters. Fast forward to the 21st century, and wow, we are surrounded by so much technological comfort, but let's be real, we are spiritually exhausted. We're constantly losing touch with our true Buddha nature, wondering where we even belong in all this noise. Household cultivation was literally designed for this exact modern crisis. Okay, that brings us to Section 3, Daily Life as Spiritual Practice, or the half-sage, half-ordinary paradigm. We have this beautiful grounding maxim here: daily living is cultivation. The living is cultivation. This is such a powerful mental anchor for us. It reminds us that every single stressful email, every annoying coworker, and every boring household chore, they aren't interruptions to your spiritual life. They are the spiritual life. They're everyday opportunities to practice real patience and compassion. You don't have to wait for a weekend retreat to be spiritual. The act of just living and dealing with your family, that is the cultivation. Your home is essentially your dojo. By fully embracing this idea, absolutely anyone, whether you're working a corporate job or you're a farmer or anything in between, can turn daily hurdles into spiritual fuel. The text calls this being half sage, half ordinary, which means on the outside you look and act completely normal. You're doing your job, dealing with the chaos of the world, but on the inside, your mind is completely tranquil. You're treating your family members with the deep respect you'd give an honored guest, and you're radiating that same love out to everyone you bump into. Let's get into the how-to in Section 4, Practical Steps for Cultivation, bringing the temple to your living room. So how do we actually do this? The text outlines an amazingly accessible daily routine to keep you centered no matter how crazy life gets. Step 1, pray at a home shrine. Spend about 10 minutes physically bowing. And this isn't just some empty ritual. It's an incredibly practical way to let go of your ego and actively embody the qualities of a Buddha. Step 2, recite scriptures. This literally acts as an anchor to calm down a wandering, anxious mind. And step 3, meditate on what the text calls the mystic portal. This is a central focal point you can lock onto during any activity, whether you're walking, standing, sitting, or even lying down, so the chaos around you doesn't sweep you away. Now, a really important detail here is the specific timing for reciting those scriptures. The text is super clear. You want to aim for somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes. Why? Because if you do it for less than 10 minutes, your busy brain just hasn't had the time to actually power down and settle. But if you push it past 30 minutes, you're probably going to get tired, lose your focus, and essentially wipe out any spiritual benefit you just gained. It's not about mindless repetition. It's about hitting that perfect sweet spot to find true inner stillness. And when it comes to meditation, the practice is incredibly adaptable. You absolutely don't need to force yourself into some complex, painful, full lotus position. Honestly, just sit comfortably and naturally straight. Let those shoulders drop. The text recommends keeping your eyes about 80% closed and 20% open. This is a great little hack. It helps you shut out all the visual distractions in the room without accidentally falling asleep. You could literally do this on a quick break at the office or sitting in your parked car. All right, moving on to section 5, guarding mind and 6 senses, protecting your spiritual root. This part is absolutely crucial. Think about the 6 doors of perception: your eyes, your ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. In household cultivation, your biggest challenge is that you are constantly swimming in the secular world. These 6 senses act as wide open doors for distractions, greed, and general negativity to just walk right in. The text is very firm on this. You have to actively stand guard at these doors. You can't just leave them open. You have to consciously block negative inputs from hijacking your inner peace. Practically speaking, guarding these doors means you've got to be super intentional about filtering your environment. The text actually calls out modern media specifically, things like television shows, the news, magazines, as major hazards that silently pollute the mind. Now, this isn't about hiding under a rock and being ignorant of the world, but think of it this way. If your mind is a sacred temple, you wouldn't just let people wander in and track muddy shoes all over the floor, right? You have to be deeply protective of the information you're consuming, or you're going to slowly erode all that hard-won spiritual discipline. There's this incredibly vivid analogy in the source material that I just love. It says, if the root of a tree is destroyed, how can it have branches? If the root of life rots, do not hope for fruit in the future. It's a stark warning. Because you're cultivating at home, you're constantly exposed to worldly temptations. If you let those toxic things in through your 6 senses, your spiritual root literally begins to rot. And without a healthy root, you're never going to see the fruits of wisdom or liberation. It's a wake-up call that filtering your environment is quite literally a matter of spiritual survival. Which brings us to our final part, section 6, the joy of Dharma, transforming the ordinary. So what is the ultimate result of all this hard work? By cultivating real sincerity, and by treating both your annoying family members and total strangers with the exact same compassion, something magical happens. Your everyday, chaotic house literally transforms into a sacred temple of Dharma. The text makes an absolutely incredible point here. Society often puts secluded, lifelong monks on a massive pedestal, but a household cultivator, someone who is fighting through the chaos of the modern world, resisting constant temptation, grinding at a job, and still using every interaction to show mercy, their spiritual merit is in no way inferior to that secluded monk. You are literally turning your living room into a temple and yourself into a modern-day sage. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question to really spark your own journey into household cultivation. You don't need to abandon your life to find peace. You just need to transform how you live it. Every frustrating moment at work, every little argument at home, they're just opportunities to polish your mind. So take a look around your home right now. How will you begin ordaining your mind within those very walls today? Thanks so much for joining us, and keep learning.